Welcome to our Sound Healing Conference, our ninth Sound Healing Conference. Today we have Nestor Kornblum. And actually, first I wanted to say a few things about us. We've got everything that we're doing. The Sound Healing Conference is being put on by the nonprofit Sound Healing Research Foundation. So this is a benefit. And you can find all the information at soundhealingcenter.com. So that's our information. So Nestor, I met like 10 years ago, and I was so excited to have you on the do a presentation, because I remember last time the concert you did with Michelle was just amazing. Nestor is a co-director of both the Spanish and International Associations of Sound Therapy, and an author and facilitator. He's a master overtone singer and multi-instrumentalist, creating music for healing, meditation, and transformation. He offers sound healing trainings, workshops, and concerts worldwide. So what have you been up to lately?
I just can't believe it's, did you say 10 years since we last met in San Francisco at the Globe Conference? Wow. Okay. I feel younger now than I did then.
You look younger.
But you see, this is the main thing about the healing power of sound, David, is that it does keep you well preserved. Thank you so much for inviting me to participate, and for those of you in the audience or in the public that are just joining, it really, David is working in the same field as myself. I admire his complete approach to the subject. I think maybe he's a bit more technical than I am, whereas I'm more in the musical doing of things. But I really appreciate and respect David Gibson's contribution to the whole field of sound healing. And it really is a pleasure for me to be here this evening. Well, it's evening here in Spain, and I'm delighted to be able to tell you that actually where I'm seated in this moment is inside our large sound dome that we created way back in 1997 for working with the healing power of sound, especially the voice and singing bowls and very subtle sounds are amplified in this acoustic space, which is literally an upside down singing bowl itself.
Nice. I have one question before you
Yes,
before
David.
we begin, before you do a little sound meditation. So the world is changing dramatically, and there seems to be a huge amount of funding that's starting to pour in from philanthropists. So if you had all the money in the world, what would you do with it to help the planet?
Wow, that is really the multi-million-dollar question. I think sound gives me so much joy and daily healing. I think that above all is what I would want to share with the planet. So I would encourage not just musicians, because that creates separation. I would encourage centers in every single town and city. We are talking about if I had all the money in the world, so expense is no limitation. I would set up public centers where literally I would offer sound healing journeys, what many people call sound baths or gong baths. I don't like the word bath associated with sound somehow. But I would offer people the opportunity to experience the deep relaxation, deep joy, healing that sound can offer on a daily basis and for free. Just the joy of one's own voice, in fact, is the most important thing. No need for instruments, just voices.
Perfect. Perfect. Okay. So,
Having said that, I have here in front of me an instrument which is a monochord. This is in fact the same monochord that made the journey to San Francisco all those years ago. And so what I'd like to offer is an overtone singing journey. For those of you who have not seen or heard of overtone singing, which I happily recognize are fewer people each year, it is a very ancient technique of amplifying the pure tones within the voice, the rainbow colors that give every sound of a voice or every sound of an instrument its individual identity. And I'll be speaking about that after the meditation. For now, just appreciate that the higher, the more flute-like tones that you will be hearing do not come from this instrument. This is just a stringed instrument. I don't know how that comes through, David. I think
it's pretty good. Pretty nice.
it was in tune, but of course with the air conditioning drying out the air a bit, it probably has dropped to half tone. But as long as it's in tune with itself, that's the main thing. So this is a monochord. And I'm just going to be singing some overtones. As I said, those high tones you'll be hearing actually come from the voice, and you'll be able to see from the mouth movements that I make, they will correspond to the higher tones. So please, those of you that wish to, close your eyes and enjoy and relax and just feel, experience what these tones do to you, for you, with you, and enjoy the journey.
always hard to talk afterwards. Beautiful. It's interesting. It's not just cool sounds. It's the energy as well. In fact, that's the whole deal.
Yeah. That's true. It's I find that overtone singing or vocal harmonic singing is it's an incredible medium. In fact, for me, in my opinion, the very best medium for transmitting energy, because and it's, you know, over the 25 years I've been working with overtone singing, it's become my main instrument and my main way of transmitting energy. And of course, as I improve in energy management, it also becomes a more effective transmitter. But for me, the reason why it's the best transmitter is because it's the only natural scale that exists in every vibrating thing. And I'm fully aware that the people that are watching here today are maybe not all musicians. So, and in fact, probably the majority are not trained musicians. And so it's very important when talking about the only natural scale, or talking about overtone singing, or talking about music, it's important, I know, to put things in very easy to understand language and terminology. And that's where the monochord will help me today, you know, to demonstrate exactly what overtones are and how they work on us. But just to finish with energy, it's I think it's vitally important, and my wife, Michelle Averard, with whom I work as a partner, who's also an author of a book on freeing the voice and working with the healing voice, we are agreed that actually before we teach any of our students anything, we teach them a whole system of energy management, of how to be in their own space, how to protect their space, how to create a space around the healing area and around the client, so there's no cross-contamination of energies, etc. And it's just a system amongst many, many different systems of energy management. So we're not saying it's the only right one, but I think there needs to be, in the healing modalities, always some kind of filter or system where you create a safe container. So that's where the energy comes in, and the energy management. As far as transmitting energy is concerned, well, of course, all musicians, composers, singers, songwriters, since the beginning of time, have transmitted energy through the pure chords or intervals, relationships of the musical frequencies they're producing that react with our emotions. And then on a secondary level, there's the lyrics, which, of course, in our Western world the lyrics have become sometimes more important than the actual musical vehicle, the musical transmission, which in some ways is a shame, because I remember being a teenage jazz fan where actually the lyrics were totally unimportant. What was truly important was the energy of the different instruments and how they were performing together. It was only much later in life I discovered really the power of the voice. In fact, I didn't start playing music. I really want you all out there to know that I didn't start playing music or even standing up in public and talking about sound or the voice until I was 30 years old. So it's never too late.
I put out my first CD only 10 years ago, and now I've got 100 CDs.
Yeah, it's incredible. It really is never too late, David. And you know, the weird thing is that As a child, I didn't, and I think the only reason I'm going to share this personal information is because I think it will be really meaningful for those of you out there who have always wanted to work with sound but have been perhaps terrified. And that is, I grew up in a musical family with very musical cousins who were in fact child prodigies who learned to play the guitar and the piano when they were 4 years old. You know, and my uncle, who was the teacher, used color coding tape around their fingers and on the piano keys and stuff to get them in there. But it was, by the time I was 7 or 8 years old, they were so advanced that I thought, why bother? I'll find something else to do that I can be good at, because I've missed the boat here. And I think that 22 years went by of time that I spent doing other completely different things, leading a completely different life, before I eventually came back to my true soul and heart purpose. And so I'd really like all of you out there to don't abandon your sound. Don't allow society to create a barrier between you and the musicians, those who know how, this wonderful secret, and those who don't know how, which is like the rest of us, When people ask me what I do, I generally say I work with the healing power of sound. If they say, are you a musician? Even now, 27 years later, I still think, am I a musician? I hesitate to say, yeah, I'm a musician, because it wasn't there in my early childhood programming, not until I was 30 years old and a pretty well kind of rounded, developed adult in many other areas. So this is a whole new growth, a whole new Nestor that has developed in those last few years. And so, coming back to overtones, which is the main purpose of this, we can't discuss overtones without first discussing the voice. And of course, the voice is your main vehicle of communication. Sound and the voice have been vitally important to humanity since the very, very beginning, since human beings sat around the very first fire and grunted or made ooh, ooh, or just simple vowel sounds to each other. The voice has been the main vehicle for transmission of meaning and understanding about our planet, about our world. So it's very, very possible that hundreds of thousands of years ago, there existed the very first overtone singers. We have no proof or evidence. What we do know, excuse me, is that the first thing we know in our Western historical tradition about overtones is from Pythagoras, the famous Greek philosopher, mathematician, and musician, which many people don't know. They know about his mathematical brilliance and pioneering work, but very few people know that he was in fact the first sound healer, playing chords on his lyre that provoked different emotional responses in the listeners. And it is said that he even disarmed an attacker, making him drop his weapon to the floor simply by playing a chord on his lyre. Anyway, Pythagoras used an instrument like this monochord. As you may be able to see, this is many different strings. In this case, there are 27 strings on the monochord. But Pythagoras used a very long rectangular box, which was invented actually 5,000 or 6,000 years ago by the ancient Egyptians. And this box, or rectangular wooden box, had only a single string, just one string running from end to end. And what they would do is, using a tiny little bridge, a little wooden bridge. You can see here I'm holding up for you a triangular bridge. But this little bridge can fit underneath the string, and here it can divide the string into different ratios and proportions. Now, the ancient Egyptians used the monochord to actually find the harmonious measurements for the different temples, buildings, pyramids that they were constructing at the time. Of course, all physical matter is vibration. Every atom vibrates. So when you create measurement or create a physical structure like a temple, well, all the atoms and molecules of that structure are also vibrating, and they will in fact vibrate according to the same template that you build into the basic earth level construction of this temple, of this building, of this physical matter. So all physical matter has measurement, all physical matter has sound because it vibrates, and there are some measurements and sounds which sound and look to the human eye naturally far more harmonious than others. The reason for this is because we have an inbuilt overtone harmonic detector. We have inbuilt tools for assessing symmetry. And this is how we assess how if another human being is in fact good looking or well built or whatever, is because of the physical symmetry in the structure. It's not because we are making emotional, mental, psychological value judgments. It's that human beings literally have an inbuilt symmetry detector, both in their eyes and in their ears. We are tuned to this beautiful, natural, harmonic scale that exists in all things. So Pythagoras had his monochord 2,600 years ago, by the way. And he was investigating the parts of sound because, of course, when you bang a metal instrument, and this was supposedly the way that Pythagoras first heard or was puzzled by overtones or harmonics. I'm going to just use this singing bowl as an example and hold it near to this little lapel microphone I'm wearing. But whenever you hear a sound, if you allow your ears to perceive the following waves, the aftershocks, if you like, or the sounds that float above the original sound, you will move into the world of overtones. You will move into the world of harmonics. So if I strike this bowl here, many of you might hear only the basic sound, which is this. If I sing it with the voice, okay. But within that sound, you will begin to hear much higher sounds now. And if I just amplify those using my mouth cavity, So I'm not sure exactly how much you're able to capture of this, but if it's enough
We're hearing it
that...
quite well.
Pardon, David?
We're hearing it quite well.
Okay, good. Well, actually, I don't see you, so for me, you disappeared. Okay, so as long as you can hear that loud, that's good. Overtones exist in all vibrating things. They are the way that sound naturally chooses to arrange itself. Anytime there's a big initial vibration, it will contain within it after vibrations. Now, if you are creating a simultaneous constant sound, then those vibrations will stabilize at certain levels above what we call the fundamental, the basic tone. Ah, for example, being the fundamental pitch of my voice. Now, if I just go, ah, well, there'll be aftershocks that will carry on in a mathematically precise way. What Pythagoras was able to ascertain, what he was able to measure with his monochord, was that the parts of sound, or the ways in which sound chooses to arrange itself, being a design by the Creator, by God, Goddess, his, her, herself, in his, her wisdom, chose to create sound with a very, very arithmetical, basic mathematical structure that helps to restore balance, coherence, and harmony on all levels, not just of human beings, but on all beings, being the basic vibration or resonance of everything in the universe. So if we divide a string, and of course Pythagoras had his little triangular bridge, or maybe it was a flat bridge, we don't know, but we do know that he divided his string. And I think we could all agree that if you're going to divide a string, the first logical division of a string, I'm just going to put my white shirt down so you can see where that bridge is. You can see where that bridge is. And you can see that it divides the string into roughly 2 equal pieces, a half. So if I remove that bridge, and we listen to the fundamental pitch of that string, before anything happens to it. Now, if that string was vibrating 100 times per second, 100 cycles per second, 100 hertz would be the scientific terminology for it, but 100 vibrations, 100 pulses, complete pulses in 1 second. If that string were vibrating to that, and I divided it into 2 equal parts, the first question for all of you out there is, how do I know when I have the perfect center of the string? Imagine a world where there are no tape measures or standard measurements like millimeters or centimeters, or perhaps for many of you in the States or Great Britain, inches or quarters or eighths of an inch, etc. There were no standard measurements that could be applied throughout. So the only way Pythagoras could know that he reached the center of the string was how? This apparent half of the string is higher, which means it's actually shorter, right? The shorter the string, the higher you sing, is the rule for non-musicians, okay? So that's lower, that's higher. I have to move. In such a way as to make the shorter string longer. I'm not going to bother with precise measurements here, basically the two sides of the string are the same. And what Pythagoras noticed was that each half of the string sounded exactly the same as the original whole string, but just a little higher. And here he made the most important discovery in all of sound, in all of music, in all of vibration. He discovered the law of the octave. The octave is any sound that is exactly double the frequency of any other sound. So if we took the whole string, the original string here from this bridge to this terminal here, that is the length of the string, and we already heard its original sound. Now we divided it in half, and each half has the same sound, but with the frequency doubled. So if the original sound was 100 cycles per second, as I said just a few seconds ago, then half the string will be 200 cycles per second. So immediately we have two pieces, or two units. Can you see? Here we have two units to one original unit, which is the basic original sound. 1 to 2 or 2 to 1. And this is where we get involved into mathematics, structure, relationship. We have here a 1 to 2 or a 2 to 1 relationship between the fundamental pitch of an instrument or a voice and its first overtone. So you begin to hear that inside one droning sound, you have other higher sounds. Well, in the overtone series, the very first overtone, or second harmonic, if the first harmonic is the fundamental, your very first overtone is 1 octave above your fundamental pitch. So where was the logical place for Pythagoras to move after dividing his string into 2 equal pieces? Was to go to 3 equal pieces. He was, after all, a great mathematician. And so after 2 came 3. And here we had 3 equal pieces of the string. And he discovered that his next overtone was already in that next octave, because we've already jumped 1 octave above the fundamental pitch. In that next octave, this was the 5th note of a musical octave. So don't get yourself all twisted up there. It really doesn't matter. But this was a 2 to 3 ratio. It's a perfect, it's a beautiful ratio, 2 to 3, and it signifies what's called the perfect 5th, a 2 to 3 relationship. Now, what I can do here to better demonstrate this whole situation is I've created a set of tuning forks where you can actually hear these intervals. So these are the 16 harmonics, or the fundamental, and 15 overtones of this fundamental pitch. Now, this fundamental pitch is what's amongst sound therapists is called the tone, or the frequency, and was calculated by a Swiss sound therapist mathematician, Hans Cousteau, many years ago, who took the Earth year, Earth's revolution around the sun, in 1 year, or the solar year, and he calculated how many seconds there were in a solar year and came out with a frequency in cycles per second for the year. So when you hear the Earth going round the sun, of course you can't hear it because it's very slow, and we can't hear one solar year. So if we were to speed it up by doing what Pythagoras did with his monochord, if we were to double it, half the string is each half double the frequency, then we would get the next harmonic, etc. And here they go up in frequency. And of course, I don't need to play it for you, and also I'm not quite sure how it's going to come out on this. Well, I'm going to give it a try, of course. Here is the frequency. Probably you can hear it there. So if I use my voice now to imitate this frequency, to sing that frequency, these will be the resulting overtones. Now, these two I can't sing because somehow in the overtone series, these two kind of remain hidden inside the fundamental pitch of the voice. But from this harmonic here, number 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. By the way, that would be four divisions of the string. So if I were to now divide half of the string into another half, we would get half of a half, which would be number 4. Okay. Again, I said I didn't want to create mathematical stress amongst people. I'm aware that many people have huge blockages created by bad maths teachers who kept saying, but it's so easy. It's only easy if it's well explained. So this 4th harmonic, perhaps we can listen to it. And it's now 2 octaves above the fundamental. So if I sing that, it's difficult to hear because it's so close still to the fundamental pitch. But if you don't believe me, I can just blow this irrigation pipe, and you see, everything produces overtones. Any pipe, any string, any instrument, when you strike it, it produces the natural harmonics. The exception being round and curved instruments like gongs and Tibetan singing bowls do not produce an accurate or predictable overtone scale like you see here before you, where everything is half the string, a quarter of the string, a fifth of the string, a sixth of the string, etc., etc. Because that's essentially what Pythagoras did. He discovered that as you divide a string into equal pieces from the halfway mark all the way up to, well, when he got to 16, I don't know if you can really see that, but when he got to 16, he almost ran out of string. But you can ask yourselves, those of you at home, how much longer could Pythagoras theoretically divide the string? Would he eventually run out? And of course, those of you that are very quick are hitting your buzzers. The truth is you can never reach the end of the string. You can always divide it into a smaller and smaller fraction. 1/100th of a string, 100 millionth of a string, 1,000 millionth or billionth of a string, etc. You still never run out of string. You can only get closer and closer and closer to the bridge here, to the end of the string, but you will never reach the end. And if you think about it, this is truly amazing, because inside this one sound, let's listen again to that original sound of the string. Inside that sound, you have a whole infinite universe of overtones. And they are all mathematically related to each other. Just going back to that very briefly, if the string vibrates 100 times cycles per second, or hertz, then the first harmonic, half the string, is 200 times per second. And the third of the string, the next harmonic, is 300 cycles per second. And half of the half, the quarter of the string, is 400 cycles per second. A fifth of the string is 500 cycles per second, etc., etc. So as you ascend the overtone scale, all you are doing is literally going plus the fundamental, plus the fundamental, plus the fundamental. And if that fundamental is x, it's like 1x, 2x, 3x, 4x, 5x. It really is that simple. And I'll sing it for you. So there you can hear the musical relationships, and for those of you that are classically trained musicians, and even worse, for those of you that have what's called perfect pitch, in the Western sense, these sounds may sound out of tune to you because they are not in tune with the piano, with Western musical intervals. What does that mean? What it means is our Western musical instruments are out of tune. I'm very sorry to have to break this news to you, but actually it's true that the beautiful even-tempered scale that Johann Sebastian Bach introduced in 1692 with his well-tempered clavier, actually, although it lent enormous flexibility to a whole new epoch, shall we call it, of classical music, it opened up the whole world to orchestras of 100 musicians or more, to the combination of a huge number of musical instruments. This opened this new equidistant tuning where all the notes on the piano are equally spaced from all the other notes. And it doesn't matter whether they're the white keys or the black keys, they are all semi-tones. They are not really the full tones of an octave, oct meaning 8. Nowadays we have 12 tones squeezed into the same space that 8 tones previously occupied. That's why octave for us is no longer 8, it's now 12 smaller tones. And so when you sing overtones, there are big jumps, like the first tone is a whole octave, And then the next tone, yeah, the first jump in the overtones is a whole octave, and then you jump to the fifth, and then to the next octave, and then here we get a major third and another perfect fifth. Incidentally, the perfect fifth does not exist on a piano. The piano being an instrument of semitones only, you cannot get a perfect fifth. What you get is a fifth that's almost on the noggin, but it's actually something, comma, something, something, something. It is not 2 to 3. Remember I discussed that the perfect fifth was a 2 to 3 ratio. And so anyway, all of this information about the beautiful mathematics of harmonics, going to the healing aspects of it, is that as it's the only natural scale in existence, it means that the molecules and atoms of your body are actually exquisitely designed, tuned to receiving and absorbing overtones better than any other man-made synthetic musical scale, like, well, all modern Western music for a start. I'm not saying it's bad for you, of course. All music works on the emotional body, and piano music, music with modern keyboards, like any other music, will work on the emotional body. But I'm talking here about in an ideal perfection. The overtone scale is the only one that truly reflects the accurate mathematical or arithmetic ratios that reflect in the actual construction at the molecular level of our cells. And so if we are going to speak the same, if we want to heal the body and heal the cells or create changes at the physical level, then obviously if we speak the same language as the body, that means in the same mathematical structural language, which is the overtones, then we have a far greater possibility of restoring natural balance, natural harmony, and natural coherence to all the body's systems. So I believe that what I've been going through here, even though it may be quite technical for some of you, is that harmonics form the vibrational blueprint, the vibrational archetype for all other vibrating structures in the universe. And as we know that all matter vibrates, that means all particles vibrate. They will vibrate with a fundamental pitch and those secondary pitches which are harmonics, or one of the easiest and best definitions of harmonics are whole number multiples of the fundamental pitch. So if your fundamental pitch is 10 hertz or cycles per second, your harmonics will be 10 plus 10 plus 10 plus 10 plus 10, or 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70. It really is that simple. However, I'm aware that very often when people hear overtones for the first time, and going back to what David said earlier, yes, you can transmit energy, and also, like any musical instrument, you can transmit emotions through the overtone singing, because there is a lot of overtone singing out there on social media, YouTube, and other platforms, musical platforms, that serve only a folkloric or a musical purpose. It, of course, has a lot to do with what you do with your harmonics, how you transmit them. For me, it's kind of quite frivolous just to use overtones to make musical melodies, as many, many singers are doing in the modern world. They say, oh, wow, what a wonderful technique. So you can go, wow, wow, he's changing his voice and he's changing these, and he's singing two different sounds, two different melodies all at the same time. But the truth is, that becomes kind of a mental exercise which doesn't really reach the heart, soul, and healing level. So what I do in my work with overtone singing is literally first to ground myself, to be anchored in the earth, and then to open and be connected to the cosmic energy that is flowing through me, through the center of me, and to also receive cosmic energy through my hands, which flows up my arms and also down to my root chakra and down into the earth, so I'm completely connected. And then I create a protection around myself. And after those steps are taken, then I have to deal with the ego, because I'm still me sitting there, and I know that I've been doing this for 27 years, but every time I'm still nervous, and I still have to acknowledge that, yes, that is the ego. When you're nervous, it's because the ego is saying, how am I doing? Is everybody else thinking that I'm okay, that I'm good? So that's the ego. Immediately, and that takes a while to work through, but when I start singing overtones, it's after just a few seconds where suddenly everything clicks and moves and harmonizes, moves into place. And then suddenly, poof, I disappear. Nestor disappears, and then it's almost as if I am forming part of an enormous string, an enormous monochord that runs from the center of the earth to the center of the cosmos, and that a divine hand is plucking that string, and those vibrations are just moving through me, with me, part of me, from me, but also to me. In this sense, it's quite a lot like channeling. In fact, it is. It's channeling pure sound. And that's what I'd really, really like to share with the world, is how to bring out these overtones, which actually that's the easiest part of overtones or harmonics, is actually the exercises to learn to sing them. What's difficult is all the other stuff I've been talking about, the mathematics, the arithmetic, what differentiates it from modern Western musical or traditional instruments like piano, guitar, trumpet, and saxophone. Besides the obvious fact, I think what's obvious to many of you, is that those are not really subtle instruments that you would use to induce a very calming, deep, and meditative state of being, which is the state of being where healing is most likely to be able to take place. And I'm sure you have a whole panorama of experts coming up that you've lined up, David, who will talk about the brain waves. I mean, there's a lot that I don't even have time to go into here. But yes, overtone singing can create lots of different changes in your brainwave state, provoking deep meditation and healing. So there are many levels on which it works. And I think probably I'm reaching towards the end of my presentation now.
I've got a couple of questions. So is it, I know there's overtone singing where you're mostly using the tongue and making the distance between your tongue and the roof of the mouth equal one of the harmonics, the wavelength of one of the harmonics. And then there's throat singing.
Yes.
and you teach actual throat singing. And is it, and I know your answer here, but I want to ask it anyway. And that is, can a normal person learn throat singing? Because I find it really difficult. And I'm wondering if you could give me a couple little pointers, because here's what's been happening for me. About a year
Okay.
ago, the Hathors showed up, and they've been working on my voice. And
Okay.
so I'm able to do much lower frequencies now. But, and sometimes I can get, really rarely, I can do overtone singing, right? But I rarely the throat singing happens, but I can't get it to happen on my own.
Okay.
Right? So
Okay.
it can be done, you're saying, right? With just a normal
It
person.
can be done. Sure, it can be done, David. My 25-year-old daughter, who is a wonderful shamanic ancestral voice singer, she recently got her deep voice. And I'm aware, I can hear that you have a higher fundamental voice than I do. But all that happens is it's all about vibrating the vestibular folds or ventricular folds, the false vocal cords, which are actually located physically, although the sound of throat singing is lower, one octave lower than your fundamental pitch. In other words, if you sing ah,
Uh-huh.
then the sub fundamental when you hear what's actually happening is two fundamental pitches. My voice, my vocal cords continue, but what happens is my false vocal cords also begin to flap. But because they're much thicker folds of skin, they can't match the same tone as my voice. So they come in always exactly one octave lower. And so it's kind of like pulling your throat lining inwards, but still in a relaxed voice. And a good way to do this, I would normally say don't try this at home, folks, but this is the whole point of this presentation. You can try it at home, but don't do this for more than a few minutes and then leave it until the next day. What I always tell my students is imagine you are going to steam up your glasses to clean your glasses, okay, to polish your glasses. So you kind of lift your chin up and you invite it to come down from above, from the heavens or wherever. And you go, so it's like an aspirated H, like a Hathor sound, but also kind of like you are on your way to an audition for The Exorcist. Okay,
With
like a
angels
horror
all
movie.
around.
Yeah, like a horror movie. In fact, David and all of you out there, it's quite terrifying to know they actually used a recording of Tibetan lamas chanting on The Exorcist, and this deep voice chant forever became associated with something evil. And I remember way back 27 years ago when I first started singing in public this deep voice throat singing, there would be kids in the audience who would burst into tears, or some who would giggle hysterically, but it always provoked an emotional reaction. And it's because it's been planted in our morphogenetic web. So, but yeah, that's a way of doing it. Cool. On 4 occasions, we've had the Tibetan monks, we've hosted them here in the Dome Center on their tour of Spain, and I've asked them, how do you learn to do this in the monastery? And it's actually quite brutal. They sometimes dangle a chunk of raw meat on the end of a cotton thread down the back of the throat of the lama or prospective lama, right in the area where it provokes a kind of a puke response. And that's the so anyway, I don't recommend to any of you that you put your fingers down your throat. The whole purpose of the ventricular or vestibular folds is to stop food and drink from going down the trachea and to protect your vocal cords. So when looked at from above, it is it's a membrane with a quite a slit membrane in it, which can close and open, and that means you can pull those folds into the line of air so that they start to vibrate.
Cool.
And hopefully that's helpful to some of you. And another recommendation for those of you that do sing the high overtones, I heard you come in earlier, David, with what I would consider to be a very high fundamental pitch. And this is a common issue with many, many, many people who come in contact with Mongolian throat singing is I encourage my students to so to bring the fundamental pitch lower, it's a challenge. It's a very big challenge, but what you get then are much flutier, woodier sounding bamboo flute type overtones. Instead of getting these very, very high pitched, penetrating harmonics, which are not really, to be honest, if we all think about it, it's really not that relaxing. Mm-hmm. And also in a one-on-one sound treatment, if I were to take my patient laying out here on the massage bed or therapy bed, for example, and I went, okay, I'm going to sing some overtones to you, just relax. I mean, it's like they're going to go, okay, I'm out of here, I'm running. But if I go, right down, and I go, then it's like,
Nice, nice. Yeah. I want to share one thing that I know, this mathematical structure of overtones, 1 times 2 times 3 times, it's in the distance between the planets. The fundamental is the Sun to Mercury, and then Mercury to Venus is 2 times, Venus to Earth is 3 times, and Earth to the asteroid belts 4, and so forth. It's totally in the solar system. And in the distance of electron shells, Fabian Maman says it's in the auras. And also Michio Kaku says that mathematical structure is exactly in the string theory. There's harmonics in string theory as well. And I would bet, although no one's ever said this, that the actual chakras go up based on the harmonics, because that's the way God does sound and vibration, right?
It would make a lot more sense than C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C.
Totally, huh?
Or even this sacred solfeggio, dare I risk upsetting thousands of people out there.
Go for it.
I mean, this has become the new gospel, is this sacred solfeggio system. And when I talk about gospels, I mean that the gospels were written 40 years after Jesus died. And I don't know how accurate a rumor is even a few days later, but 40 years later. So when people say, hey, this is the gospel truth, it means it's been wildly twisted and exaggerated.
Well, a lot of people don't realize that the solfeggio frequencies are actually discovered 30 years ago by Joseph Paleo by doing numerology on the Bible. They aren't ancient. Although I have to tell you one thing really funny. One of the psychic I was working with, I was talking to him about one of the solfeggios, 852, and I said, yeah, they're not ancient. And he says, let me check in. And he goes, oh my God, oh my God. And he says, oh my God, 852 created the universe. And I'm like, well, maybe they are ancient. Who knows? Who knows, right?
This is the thing. I mean, I've worked with these frequencies as tuning forks and in other ways, and they are not harmonic. I cannot find or bring myself to be able to work with them, because for me, the most healing aspect of sound is not so much the single frequencies, but the intervals. It's when you have two frequencies that create a relationship between them. I know I recently came across, or that was shared with me by many people, a video about experiments that were done to imitating a little bit what Fabien Maman did many years ago, was to explode cancer cells with sound. And apparently they tried in an electronic generator, and they tried thousands, hundreds of thousands of different frequencies during months. And eventually they discovered that it was only when there were two sounds simultaneously that they could have a result, a clear result every time. And in fact, it was the 11th, it was the fundamental and the 11th harmonic sounding at the same time that actually exploded or caused these leukemia and cancer cells to explode. Now, the 11th harmonic, during the Inquisition of the popes, which lasted 300 years, the 11th harmonic creates an interval called tritone, or the augmented fourth, which as a musician you know about, but many people don't. But it was called by a certain pope the tone of the devil. And it's if you sing a C and an F sharp. Now, as you sing up the natural harmonic scale, this tone automatically appears, which means it's part of creation. But it produces what an objective observer or listener would consider not very harmonious sounding interval. An interval that produces tension. And that it's exactly that tension that explodes the cancer.
You know, I've got a theory that actually, if we were to find the, let me backtrack, Anthony Holland, who did this research that you're talking about, he actually only was able to explode 40 to 60% of the cancer cells in his research. And I believe that if we were to find the actual harmonic structure of all the frequencies, maybe it's, you know, even 30 harmonics of the cancer, and map it to it perfectly, I bet we could destroy 100% of the cancer cells.
I'm sure, and while I am not the person who has even the time to do that,
it's only like gazillion combinations.
I'm so delighted. And that's what I would, you know, also spend some of that money on that you asked me about at the beginning. Is I would pool our knowledge and resources, because I think that sound created the universe, sound is the medium for healing the universe, and sound can give us all the clues to creating each time a slightly more perfect or harmonious or healed universe. So
nice. Well, I'm excited to take your workshop for doing throat singing, overtone singing. It's only $20, and you know, people can sign up. It's really, really nice of you to do it for so little. It's really nice, and I'm just so excited because I just feel like I'm on the threshold of totally transforming my voice right now. And it's
well,
like,
I must clarify about my special offer, David, is because at the time that I signed up for this presentation, I actually had calendar issues, so I didn't get a chance to program online webinars, etc. What my special offer is actually, it's a download that already exists.
Oh, okay.
It's a series of instructions and lessons that people can download, and it's designed so that you sing with very, very clear text, that you read each instruction and then sing along with me There are 26 exercises in MP3, but I guarantee that this course, I published it in 2005, so quite a long while ago. But thousands of people have learned to sing overtones very quickly and easily with this course. So it's an already existing download. But please, anybody who has my contact details, I will be recording and presenting very soon the Harmonic Sounds Online Academy, because as you can imagine, the whole COVID situation has forced Michel and I to do what we've actually been resisting doing for many years, which is going digital and online. We've been resisting that because we're the acoustic kids, and people come from all over the world to study with us here in this beautiful dome.
What's your contact info?
Very simple, info@harmonicsounds.com. info@harmonicsounds.com. And very soon we will have academy. Harmonic Sounds Academy online at harmonicsounds.com. But anyway, you'll be able to get there through the website, which is harmonicsounds.com. And we will be presenting the healing voice, healing overtones, and a whole bunch of different programs in the very near future. So thanks to the current situation, we've been forced out there into that online world.
Well, thank you so much for your presentation. I really appreciate it.
Thanks a lot, David, for inviting me. And I truly wish that your entire Globe conference goes extremely well. I wish all initiatives with sound the very, very best. It really is, as Edgar Cayce said, the medicine of the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care. I'm going to do my closing video now.
Okay. Thank you, David. I'm going to leave now.
Okay, bye.